Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. I'm your host, Jerred Moon. The Garage Gym Athlete Podcast is a result of my desire to build better humans, unequivocal coaches, and autonomous athletes. I've spent the last several years obsessing over program design, nutrition, and every other way you can optimize human performance. This podcast distills the latest scientific research with what I've learned and blends it with the not-so-scientific field of mental toughness. We are here to build you into a dangerously effective athlete. If you enjoy this podcast, you can find out more about our training at garagegymathlete.com. And if you want to pursue more into the field of coaching and programming, head to endof3fitness.com. Thanks for listening. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. I'm Jerred Moon, here with Ashley Hicks and Joe Courtney.
Hello.
How's it going?
Guten Tag.
Welcome back, Ashley. Glad to have you back.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Joe's already shaking his head at me. This is going to be a good one.
Some of that, yeah.
All right. All right. Well, we're just going to dive right in. We're going to be talking about tempo lifting today in all aspects. So we have a study talking about tempo. That's kind of our topic of conversation for the day. Mainly because we feel like some of our athletes get confused on what tempo lifting is and how to execute it. And if you are listening to this and you're already like, what the hell is tempo lifting? Really, it's just controlling different portions of the lift and lifting to a tempo. You can lift to a metronome. You can count it in your head. You can do whatever you want, but it's controlling movement through the downward. I'm trying to be nice, but I want to use eccentric, concentric, isometric, but I'm trying to avoid those so people completely understand what I'm saying. So just controlling every aspect as opposed to just lifting however you want or lifting quickly. Tempo is kind of the opposite of that. And we're going to talk about it. So let's get into the study for today. Effect of different eccentric tempos on hypertrophy and strength of the lower limbs. Study was done this year. 8 men and 2 women who hadn't lifted for at least 3 months performed the leg extension with a 2-second eccentric and 1-second concentric tempo on one leg, while the other leg used a tempo of 4-1 for 8 weeks. So the eccentric is the lowering of the movement or the lengthening, and the concentric would be the contraction. So if we're talking about the squat, the eccentric would be on the way down and the concentric would be on the way up. And that is about all you need to know there. So the researchers hypothesized that there'd be a greater hypertrophy and strength changes with a 4-second versus a 2-second eccentric duration. And I know just from my past bodybuilding days, that was like all the rage. Eccentric contractions, like controlling that movement on the down, was how you could really grow muscle. And there's a lot of theory behind it. This study doesn't talk about any of it. They just kind of controlled the same amount of weight either for 4 seconds or 2 seconds on the leg. But one thing that's really cool with eccentric that I don't feel like was discussed is the fact that you can handle a lot more weight on an eccentric contraction. So one thing that we used to do, like on the bench press, is we would load up to like 120% of our 1 rep max, and then we would just lower it, and your spotter would pick it up for you, and you would lower it. And so I think when you're playing that game, the results would be drastically different than what we're going to discuss today. And that's why we're going to talk about tempo a little bit more, because there's a lot more than just this study. So all they did, I mean, I don't know if I need to say anything about it. They used their legs. There's 10 people. They either did 2-second eccentric or 4-second eccentric, and overall the results basically the same. If you actually look at the hypertrophy side of it, I do think the 4-second edged out 2-second almost in every category except for one, I believe, but it still wasn't within their realm of being like hugely significant. So they overall reported that it wasn't that different. But overall, I think since it's 2-second and 4-second, it's a win for tempo in general when it comes to hypertrophy. I do have a lot more to say, but this is a very simple study, and I don't want to take every point that is possible. So what did the two of you think about this study?
Yeah, so very small study. And one of the notes that I had, just to get it out of the way, was that the study wasn't the best. And it kind of shows that tempo is kind of underrepresented and underutilized, not very well studied, so that if it maybe that's why it's not used as much, because the studies just are kind of feel like they're just kind of thrown together last minute or something. But it did show a benefit to the larger tempo group. As always, an issue is they trained their legs differently. I believe they studied their right leg compared to their left, which I always find is really weird. And with leg extensions instead of squats. So it's like they're only worried about the hypertrophy, muscle, time under tension kind of thing, damage, whatever they're doing. And they also were untrained athletes. They said they hadn't lifted in 3 months, and if you haven't lifted in 3 months, that's an untrained athlete to me. So I don't think it's a great thing to have done for untrained athletes. I mean, I think benefits are going to be big either way, but you're not going to see as deep of any sort of benefit. And I know it's good for, tempo is good for untrained athletes if you're working on form, but not exactly for what they were trying to test, your strength and hypertrophy, because both of the groups are going to gain, and it's just one's going to gain a little bit more than the other, maybe.
They always do this with hypertrophy, and I know why they do it. It's just because there's going to be this greater result, right? But it is kind of frustrating because untrained athletes aren't going to be like, oh, let me get on that slow eccentric program. They're going to be like, what's the influencer on Instagram got? They're not interested in something a little bit more advanced. I don't think this is necessarily advanced training, but it's an advanced concept for a lot of people. And so, yeah, these researchers always pick just like, hey, who's going to have the biggest results in hypertrophy? How about people who don't lift at all? And I don't know if it always seems to hurt their point. It doesn't help it. It's like, right. Yeah, you guys saw more results, but why the hell are you using these people in the first place? Like, it's not a great way to look at things.
Yeah, it's like 2% change in an untrained athlete is going to be much greater than in a trained athlete or something like that. Or you kind of know what I'm saying. But yeah, and then the concentric side of it, they did a 1 second on the concentric. I know typically we just do like 0 or like exploding up after. And I think that also can change things as well. And it also depends on how they're timing, because if you're going 4 seconds down versus 2 seconds down, even if you're telling them, okay, you're just going to take 1 second up, that person that's doing the 4 seconds still might be a slower 1 second than the 2 second person. But yeah, this study was very small. And the last part that I'm going to say for eccentric training, like tempo work, is something that it would be good to listen to. Is back on the Be Better Humanology podcast, you had Dr. Lepley on, and she's like a specialist and was working with people with knee injuries and rehabbing and building back, specifically with eccentric training. And I remember that being a really good podcast on specifically eccentric, and really diving into the weeds and into her research. But Ashley.
Yeah, so I don't really have too much to say, because you stole some of my points, because I said the same thing. Why didn't they do squats? Why do they always do the stupid leg extension? And you couldn't pay me enough money to be, hey, you're going to be in a study. You're going to have to train 2 legs differently. Like,
that's how you know they're untrained athletes, because they're like, does it matter? I don't even know if I care.
They're just going to go back to doing nothing anyway.
Yeah. And then the one thing that I wanted to kind of like spot on, they said something about the average reps that they tested on each leg. So like on their left leg versus their right leg, the 2-1 to 4-1. But in my mind, did they do that as like, did they retest their failure kind of thing? Or were they just saying like the amount of reps that they were able to do under the tension time?
I think that they did. What was it?
I thought it was the second one.
5 sets to failure at the 70% of 1 rep max. Did they do a control in before and after? I think
they did do a control before and after.
Yeah.
Okay.
Looking up. Actually, it looks like they did 1 rep max testing.
Yeah. So it was just weird to me that they wouldn't do the same thing that they started with at the beginning. I don't know. And then just what you said, the 4 seconds did show improvement. And we've always said time under tension is a good thing. It's not the most favorite thing for, I think, people to train with. I think it can be difficult, and that's the point, right? So my killing comfort for this one, just because it's kind of a, I don't know, it's not the best study, but is try out some tempo lifting. I said you're bound to do so, especially if you're doing a deload week with us. We've had some tempo lifting, and I'm pretty sure we just had tempo lifting for deload week in the past, but that's pretty much all I got on this one. Jerred, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think I mean if I would have structured the study, I would have had just a no eccentric, no controlled tempo lifting group, right? Wouldn't that make sense? Like,
Yeah, nothing.
because I get that they're trying to compare 2 to 4, but in that experiment, you're really just seeing which one's better, 2 seconds or 4 seconds. It's like you're trying to prove the point of which eccentric duration is better. But I would like to know regular lift, 2 second, 4 second, because I bet that your 0 second to 4 second would be of significant difference, and it would maybe push untrained people to do more tempo lifting. And we do typically recommend beginner athletes start with tempo lifting for a lot of reasons, and maybe I'll save some of that for the topic. But within this study design, I would have loved to see that. I think overall, and I kind of mentioned at the beginning, this study, while small and the results between 4 and 2 were not drastically different, they were different, and both of them saw results. Again, going back to they're untrained. Would they have seen results if we were just lifting milk jugs attached to our feet? Probably they would have. But there is a difference. So to me, it shows when it comes to strength and hypertrophy, tempo lifting just in general is effective, which I think is worth noting. So I think that that's really important to focus on. Is this getting wrapped around 4 seconds or 2 seconds? I always, when I brief them for athlete briefs, when we're doing tempo lifting, I normally say at some point, like, if you're getting annoyed with a tempo, just control it on the way down, because your body is not this robotic machine. I say it all the time, but how much difference do your quadriceps know between a 4 second descent and a 5 second descent? And it's probably not a lot. And how precise were you actually when executing it? So I think the real takeaway when doing tempo lifting is just control. Control is the biggest thing. So that's where I'll jump to in my killing comfort, because in my brain, I call tempo lifting the most annoying form of lifting in the world. That's what tempo lifting is. I hate it. But I only hate it because it challenges me mentally. I don't hate it because it's bad. I don't skip it when it's programmed. I do it. It's just, it annoys the crap out of me to have to lower a squat very slowly. It's very challenging. So I think just doing tempo lifting, embracing it, and controlling every aspect of a repetition is how I recommend people kill comfort with this information. Is try some slower descents. Try controlling even on the way up. Try a controlled ascent on the squat or bench press or something like that, and really see how good your muscles are, through the entire contraction. Just pushing something really fast all the time isn't necessarily the best thing for you. So control your lifts all the way through, and see what kind of progress you make, because the science says it's effective overall. Joe, how about you?
Oh, I don't know. I definitely think, I mean, just thinking of mentally, I think the concentric part is more mentally frustrating than the eccentric part, because I like doing negatives and lowering kind of makes sense, but like if I actually want to execute a rep, I want to execute it explosively versus going down. I'm not going to explosively go down. I'm going to explosively go up. So flipping it around, I think, is even more mentally frustrating to me.
I think that it's all frustrating. If I was
Yeah,
focused on the down, I really just meant the whole thing. It's all.
yeah. And then you're like, hey, I just did 5 reps, but man, my heart rate is jacked right now.
Yeah.
Seriously.
So did you say you
So
don't
where's
know?
your killing comfort?
I don't really have anything because we already talked about tempo. Like, there's not really, I don't really know what would be left. Learning the difference between eccentric and concentric.
There you go.
Oh, there's a good one. Yeah.
Actually, just knowing what the hell how to do
Yeah.
this. So we can flip to actually talking about tempo lifting, because I think a lot of athletes do get confused, and I always brief it. If you're one of our in one of our programs that should be briefed, on how to execute it. A lot of people I know, you don't watch the athlete brief. And so you didn't hear us say it. Joe just gave YouTubers the eye on that one. So let's go through an example. And we will link this tempo lifting in the blog post for this episode. And I normally link it too in our programming so athletes can read a little bit more about it, because I just go over muscle contractions. So
do like a squat and then like do like a deadlift, because I feel like
I'll do a squat and a pull up.
okay.
Just because that's what I was prepared for. Let's look at a 4-0-1-0 tempo. So that's typically how it's written. Some coaches write it with an X, and that doesn't make any sense because X is not time. So I get this sometimes, and they're like, "Oh, I've seen it written as X," and I'm like, "You've seen it written as stupid." That doesn't
like, is X supposed to be 0 or 1?
It's supposed to be explode. One, it's not an E. E is how you spell explode. 2, it's not a duration. So if you see the X, you've seen stupid. And
okay.
I'm messing with VD primarily on
I
this
was
one.
I didn't want to name his name. I was like, man, that's VD right there, but I didn't want to say it because
VD can take it. He gives me just as much crap as I give him. All right, so but there are a lot of coaches who write it that way. It's not actually a problem. Just know what it is. The X is typically just explode. And normally that's written like at the bottom of the repetition, like when you're coming out of the squat. 0 would mean the same thing. So let's look at a 4-0-1-0 example. So if you were on the squat, that first number, the 4, is eccentric. So lengthening of the muscle. And that's the main thing that you need to think about. And so this doesn't change per movement. That's why Ashley wants me to do 2 different movements, because the first number is always going to be the eccentric. It doesn't really matter where the movement starts. It matters that first one is eccentric. So if we're looking at the squat, you take that bar off the rack, you would lower for 4 seconds on the way down. So 1, 2, 3, 4. It's lower than that though. Then you're going to pause at the bottom. So I said 4-0-1-0. So there actually wouldn't be a pause. This would be the 0. This would be the explode. So you're on your way up. There, you don't spend any time in the bottom. 1. So this is the concentric, the up here in the squat, and the shortening of the muscles. So they're contracting. They're coming back together, and that's how your body is able to stand up. And then the last would be 0. So no pause at the top. So once you have fully contracted your muscles, you're at the top of the repetition. You then begin the next one. So in all, that should be a 5-second repetition. Super annoying, super painful, super metabolically demanding. As Joe has said, your heart rate can get jacked up. This can become a conditioning session all by itself. So that's 4-0-1-0 on the squat. And then if you want to look at 4-0-1-0 on the pull-up, well, you start hanging from the bar. So the first thing that you do is the concentric. This is how I do it, and this is how I recommend athletes do it. Just ignore the first pull. Just ignore it. All right. Otherwise, it's going to confuse your brain. And then just start with the eccentric. So ignore the first pull. So you're going to pull up to the bar. We're going to ignore that. Doesn't count. Yeah, you just did a half a repetition. It doesn't count. It's okay. You're going to be better for it. And now we get into the 4-0-1-0. So 4 seconds on the pull-up would then be the lowering back down to the ground, arms becoming extended. 0 would be your pause at the bottom, which would be no pause with a 0. 1 second just means kind of a controlled up, and then a 0-second pause at the top, your isometric hold. So that's what it would look like on the pull-up versus the squat. And really, that is my tip for athletes. I always brief it too, because I know it's confusing with a couple different movements. For the most part, it makes sense. But if you just know lengthening is the first, eccentric, and how did I write this in the article? Eccentric is the part of the muscle contraction no one cares about.
Right.
That's how I wrote it in the
Nobody
lift.
cares about the bottom of your squat.
if you ever get confused, like, wait, which one's the eccentric? Be like, what would get me the least amount of likes on Instagram? A video of me just lowering a squat but never standing it up, or standing it up. Standing it up is the part that everyone cares about. That's the concentric. So people typically care about the concentric because it's the true completion of the repetition. No one cares about how slow you're controlling the weight on the way down. So does that make sense? All good there? We understand
Completely.
tempo? All right, cool. So
That's good.
everyone understands muscle contractions and tempo lifting. We can get into benefits and all these other things, but I want to hear what the two of you have to say on tempo lifting in general as a topic.
So I know one of the main things we've gotten questions on, and we think we did an entire AMA on it, is breathing while doing tempo. And that is, you know, if you're doing 4-second lowering down, you should still be able to hold and breathe and brace yourself and hold that breath for the 4 seconds. If you're getting up to like 6 to 8 seconds, that's a little bit different. That it gets a little bit more complicated, but you should still be able to brace yourself the entire time. And you're still not going to be taking deep breaths in and out while you're going through it. You still want to stay braced no matter what you're doing, and do your exchange of breath at the change of whatever change of direction that you're doing. So that's the biggest one for breathing. That's what I think we get a lot of. And if you need to take extra breaths, do it in between reps. So not like during. If you really need to, like, make sure you're sticking to the tempo and you're bracing during the reps. But if you need some extra reps, some people, if they're new, they might make themselves dizzy or something. Do it in between the reps versus trying to like breathe during the reps. Yeah, I said that right. Words are hard.
I just imagine someone like doing the bottom of a squat and like trying to breathe on like second 3 or something.
Yeah, like
as they've got the weight on their back.
Bottom. Yeah, starting at the bottom, it's like, what the hell are you doing? Yeah. And then with tempos, it's a lot of times with us, it's governing yourself. You have to pick your own challenging weight and knowing what's safe. So you need to be able to keep that form, but you really need to challenge yourself on the tempo. And like we said before, tempos are annoying. Tempos suck. We feel that too. We were doing that on purpose, but you still have to challenge yourself. Like, if you can do more, then you should, you know, safely with form, with whatever those rep scheme is. So that's also why we haven't put percentages when program tempos, because it's kind of up to you to stay with form with that cadence, but the tempo seconds is the most important in form.
I have put percentages in there, but it gets a lot of complaints from the athletes.
It's like, how the hell am I supposed to do 70?
It's a Jerred percentage. That's why.
Yeah.
It's just like I think you should be able to do this, and then when a lot of people can't, it's just like, okay, well, my bad. No percentages. Pick a challenging weight. It is hard. It's hard for every single person because there are really advanced athletes. Like, and when I say advanced, I just mean strong, like really strong athletes who couldn't hold a tempo at the percentage I wanted them to save their life because they never really practice that stuff. They're just good at dropping down and standing back up. You know, let's just say in the squat. But when I ask them to control it, they're like, I can't control 70% of this mess. Like, what are you talking about? And so it's going to be different for every single person.
You're not wrong. So I'm kind of the weirdo, I guess, in the group, and I actually like tempo lifting. It doesn't
like
bother
burpees and thrusters. And
yeah, of course you do.
All the bad things.
I do. So I suggest to use a visual aid when you are doing this. So what I mean by that is like have a stopwatch, whether that be your phone or like you actually have a timer in your gym, whatever it is, like actually watch that tempo, that the seconds, and don't count it in your head. Because if you count it in your head, it's not going to be the right length. Just trust me on that one, especially when you're under tension. Like you're going to make 4 seconds turn into 2 seconds, right?
2, 3, 4. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So
well, if I count it myself too, I end up like, if it's a lot of reps, I'll end up messing up on the reps. I'm like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1 rep.
Dang. What rep
And
am I on?
that's really hard to like keep.
That took me a while to get down to.
Yeah, to keep count of your reps when you're doing it that way.
Yeah. So the visual aid just helps you. So you know, you're going to obviously be going down and having to count reps, right? So that's mental. So it just takes out another thing. And that way you're actually sticking to the correct tempo. And then for breathing, I said the exact same thing that Joe did. I said, I like to take a big deep breath before the eccentric movement, and then that release with the concentric movement, because that's what you're doing anyways with your lifts, right? Everybody's doing that before. You're just doing it a little bit longer. And then for form, we always talk about how tempo lifting is great on form. It is when you start to break down, right? So I think that videoing yourself when you're doing tempo lifting is actually really great, because you can start to see like, oh man, it's like when I'm going down at the bottom of my squat, I'm actually leaning forward and I'm not pushing my butt back and I'm not getting the correct form. Same with the deadlift, like I'm hunching over there. And then you can kind of see like where you need to adjust, like on what part of the lift, right? If that makes any sense. So I think tempo lifting is fabulous for that. There's not really too much more like that I could go into for tempo lifting. Jerred, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so I'll go over the benefits that I have listed in this article. So a very safe way to expand your training, especially if you want to try some new movements. Increase time under tension for continued strength gains. So time under tension has been proven over and over again to be how we gain strength, how we gain hypertrophy. That's a lot of like what we do in the one-man system with body weight training, because we can't give you more weight necessarily, but we can give you more time under tension, so you're still getting stronger and more hypertrophy. Next, be corrective in nature. So it fixes what you suck at. Ashley kind of mentioned that. Maybe you can film yourself, do something. But I highly recommend doing, if you're bad at a movement, throwing in some sort of tempo, maybe just like a straight three, like a 3-3-3-3 tempo. And because you're going to feel it. I know that's true for me in the squat. Like if I do something on the squat that like maybe it felt like it tweaked my knee a little bit and I was moving fast, just regular, let's just say regular lifting, it's almost like it happened so fast. Like, did that hurt or is that okay? But when you're going down 3 or 4 seconds slow, you're like, that's more pressure on this part of my knee, and then you're like, okay, sit back, widen out the knees a little bit, and you're like, oh, there's no more pain. So it's very, very corrective in nature. If you feel like you have these like sticking points or the pain with lifting, try some very light tempo lifting and try and correct those. Kind of in the same vein, improved barbell mechanics. You will get better the more you do this. Reduced risk of injury by that corrective fix and your improved barbell mechanics. And it works for beginner all the way to advanced. I think is a huge pro of the tempo. I can't, if I program tempo with no weight or like percentage and intensity attached to it, we're all gonna, except for Ashley, think it sucks the same amount. We're all gonna be like, yeah, that was awful. So it's great for all the coaches out there who maybe want to program something. This is great to program. And it has a great metabolic response overall, which Joe kind of mentioned. Your heart rate can get really jacked up. You could honestly do tempo lifting for conditioning if you wanted to. And I know the EMOMs in one man one barbell were essentially that. If you get heavy enough, your heart rate's like going into like zone 4 by the end of the EMOMs, depending on which lift you're doing. So those are a lot of the benefits. And other than that, the other note I have in the article is like when not to use tempo lifting. And it's just not like, if you do have something that's coming up, or if you're an athlete who needs to utilize their athleticism in a sport or whatever, I mean, don't only rely on tempo lifting. If you're following our programming, that's obviously not the only thing that we're programming, so you're good to go. But if you're kind of here to learn about tempo lifting, when to use it, when not to use it, you still need that dynamic aspect of training and sport. You need that speed element. So if all you ever did was tempo lifting, I think it actually make you kind of slow. I think it would have a reverse effect of what you're looking to do from an athletic standpoint. So if you are a power lifter, you need to see that 1 rep max stimulus. If you're an athlete who needs to use their athleticism, then make sure that you have that dynamic aspect in your training as well. Trying to see if there's anything else that we should hit on.
I was just going to say, I love that practice how you play. You always talk about that, and then I love the end though. Look at tempo training as something that makes you better at practice. That's going to get you better at the playing. Like, I really like the way that you put that, because it's so true.
Yeah. And that's improving the barbell mechanics, reducing injury, all these things. Like I training with my brother, which I've talked about quite a bit on the podcast, is just, these are the things I'm doing with him. Like because he just follows the same program that I'm on essentially, but just programmed differently, like very differently, right? And so it'd be like, I'm doing heavy back squat, you're doing body weight back squat with a tempo, and so these things are very applicable, and it's made him better at the movement, so he can then add weight and get better over time.
Give me EMOMs every day over tempo.
I know we just had some this week and I was very pumped.
How about this? EMOM versus cluster set versus tempo.
Ooh.
Which one's your pick?
I would still pick a tempo. I don't like cluster sets. I hate the rest in between. I hate them.
Sets are hard.
I say with EMOM just because you get into a groove after a while, but I do like clusters because I don't know. I don't mind the rest in between because I do like because I feel like the weight's going to be heavier and the volume's going to be a little bit more, and that little bit of rest in between allows you to do those more. I mean, by the time you get to the third set, it sucks, but like it's still I still like both of those over tempo every day.
Yeah, cluster sets are like flying
That's
close
what
to the
sucks
sun.
for me.
Like,
flying close to the sun.
Yeah, it's like it sucks. Yeah, and then melt my wings off, and then tempo. No. Everyone already knows how I feel about tempo, so I probably would pick EMOM, even though it is more metabolically demanding. I would probably pick EMOM.
Strength has some fun EMOM waves.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of how I could throw all those together.
Oh Lord, have mercy! One
training session that ultimately comes out as a Meet Yourself Saturday. Get an EMOM cluster tempo.
You're gonna need one of those red string boards.
Yes, I need one of those, Joe.
You do.
I would love to have that. Okay, I think that's it. I was going to say something else, but I quickly forgot it.
Sorry.
So we'll get into Meet Yourself Saturday and updates. So how are we meeting ourselves this week, Ashley?
We're going to do some Sallies. Sally. Oh, there you go. You're meeting Sally. You're not meeting yourself. So you're going to run 1 mile and then you're going to do Sally push-ups or excuse me, pull-ups, push-ups, air squats, and then run another mile. So you're going to do Sally up push-ups to and pull-ups and air squats to Moby's flower. And it actually says green Sally up, green Sally down. So every time you're greening up,
technicalities.
Yeah, I'm just letting you know. Then you'll be like up position, right? And then down for the push-up. Same thing for the pull-ups and the air squats. Makes a lot of sense. Now, once she says green Sally down and doesn't say anything else, that means you're staying down. So you're hanging from the pull-up, you're in the bottom position of a push-up, you're in the bottom position of the air squat. So that's where it gets challenging. For me, I said that the miles are time trials, right? So that's what makes this super challenging. Don't sandbag the miles. So time trial mile first, and then that's what sucks for the pull-up, push-ups, and air squats. And then same thing at the end, especially at the bottom of air squats. To challenge yourself for air squats, you can add weight to it. If I'm correct, you can add a barbell, add some weights to it. Be smart about that.
Yeah, it's definitely mentioned in the brief, but it's to each their own. You know, that's just how badly
it can be an empty barbell. I mean, it doesn't have to. Don't be Jason Khalipa throwing on 225 going crazy or something nuts. But yeah, so scale appropriately, obviously. And then my challenge was whether you are running with no music and then only doing the flower song for the movements, only listen to Moby's flower for this entire workout.
So mean.
That would be my challenge.
All right, Joe, what do you got in between the Sallies?
Oh no, I didn't say the rest in between the Sallies. You're right. What is the rest in between the Sallies? 2 minutes?
Sure, I'm sure it'll say officially on.
I'm sure it's written down somewhere.
It is.
Here, I can pull up our workout on Wadwell because they steal all of our workouts.
Oh,
I seriously think they've stolen every. I mean, I guess it's okay, right? It's okay to copy someone's
Huh.
work without their permission.
I mean,
Well,
no.
Team Builder does not have those. I
That's
don't
what
know.
I'm
And
saying. I was like, I don't see.
I thought there was. I thought there was. There's got to be like
I don't.
transition minutes.
I don't see it in here. Maybe it's briefed in the brief, but it like on the YouTube, it just says 1 mile run, Sally pull-ups,
Wow.
Sally push-ups, Sally air squats. There might be a rest though.
That's where there is in Team Builder, but
Be
I don't
sure to watch the brief.
Because we don't know.
watch the video all the way through.
Yeah. So funny enough, so we didn't really talk too much. So we were talking about tempo before, but we didn't talk that much about the ISO part. Well, we're going to do a lot of ISO in this one because you're holding at the bottom of your reps. So yeah, you get the in between of the eccentric and concentric. Yay, planning.
How did we do that?
I don't know. It's just
It's like we
stars
planned
align
it.
Like
for
a
us
full tempo day.
Yeah. I think that's what we say each time on the pull-ups or even push-ups scale accordingly from the beginning.
Yeah, like push-ups like go to your knees or
yeah, like whatever
Yeah.
you're
Don't do it in the middle of the workout. Is what you're saying.
Yeah. Like pull-ups, if you most people aren't going to be able to do the pull-ups, so just maybe do rings or something like that. Do the I love my barbell in the rack variation for the pull-up. Yeah, scale accordingly in the beginning, and once you pick away, once you get halfway, you can make it. So just make it.
You got it.
And you can do it with a barbell on. You can do it. I believe in you.
Yeah, you definitely can. My advice, well, I've said it before, this is the hardest Meet Yourself Saturday to actually complete. I don't know how many humans have even done it. I don't know if it's fully possible for most people to actually do this as prescribed. No break, can't fall off the pull-up bar.
Yeah.
That means you already have to hang on to a pull-up bar for like, what is it, like 4 minutes? Like how long is the Moby song? So yeah, it's like 3 or 4 minutes. So that's hard enough, like just a bar hang for that much time. But then throwing out a pull-up every once in a while makes it even more challenging. So if you survive that somehow, then you get to push-ups. You should be fine there. That's not too bad. And then air squats, if you add any sort of weight, it's just going to be damaging. But the thing with the barbell on the air squats, I really feel like this is the part I want to talk about in the challenge. You can do this one. All right. The pull-ups, a lot of people can't do a 4-minute bar hang with pull-ups in there. Push-ups, I think, whatever. You could probably do it. But the squats, I feel like everyone can do it. It's just a matter of your actual mental fortitude, your grit. I think you can do it. And I'm saying that with a barbell, without a barbell, however you want to do it. But I think that you can because I just know that you can. You can do it. It's very possible. Another thing that we like to mention in squats, stay tight in the bottom. Don't get lazy. Don't loosen up and all those things. And true failure in the squats is you can't stand up. I don't feel like doing this anymore. I can't stand up again. And also why you should be able to do it, because how are you honestly not going to be able to stand up? You can stand up, right? Come on, you can do it. So that's it. And Ashley already mentioned the 1 mile being time trial, but see if you can complete it ultimately, even at your scaled version. So if you're not going to do pull-ups and you're going to do ring rows, don't come off the rings. Just do not come off. Your hands need to hold the entire time. And same with push-ups. I think that this will be probably lost on a lot of people. This is how I will do it and how it probably should be done. I'm happy to get your opinion from the two of you, but you don't lay on the ground, right?
Oh, for the push-up?
Right. You're holding yourself in an isometric position, as
Yep.
Joe has mentioned. So that means your muscles should be painfully engaged at the bottom of the push-up, not resting like it's tea time. Okay, so you need to be not golf tea
I
time.
drink tea down from the
London
bottom.
tea time. So no drinking tea in the bottom of your push-ups.
Oh Oh no.
And I think that's it. I've said a lot, more than anyone should say about this workout. It's hard. I challenge you to finish it. Most people can't. And most people never.
I mean, I think
I don't-
an empty barbell, just holding an empty barbell is like will help you with your form throughout the entire way too.
Oh, 100%.
You're not going to be hunched over and throwing your back out.
Well, I know anytime I do Sally with like 135, it's always just a matter of do you want to do it or do you not want to do it? Not whether or not a can or can't. It's a
Right.
want.
It's mental, 100%.
Yeah. Because I'm just like, there's sometimes I stand up after being in that bottom position. I'm like, that was bad. And I don't want to do that again.
I don't
And
want to go
so-
back down. No.
Yeah. So maybe I'll rack the weight, but ultimately it's just I want to finish it. So push yourself. This is a huge meet yourself, internal, see what you got, see what you're made of type of workout. Very much so.
Mm.
All right, that's all we got for tempo. Straight across. Tempo topic, tempo
All three.
science, tempo workout. Amazing. But let's get some updates. Haven't heard from the crew in a while. Joe, how's life?
All right. Good.
All right.
Oh, that's it. Okay, cool.
That's good.
So we've been on strengths for since November, and I strength, whatever it was, how it was
Strength in the
Yeah.
scientific study. Yeah.
Yes, I'm gonna start
Oh,
renaming
no.
the title of the workouts for that. So back in November, we did 3, 5, and 7 rep maxes, and my 3 and 5 have both gone up like probably 20 pounds each. So that's pretty awesome. And squats just feeling amazing now. So
Shout
Yeah,
out
pretty-
to your own programming.
Yeah.
Seriously. And you got lower in the heavier one that you did than the first one, your initial. So just letting you know, you even got even lower.
yeah, I think I mean the angles are always kind of weird because putting bone on the ground, but
True. It is different.
it was like I put the video up and I went faster, even though I went heavier and I went lower. Like everything was just
Everything
better.
was there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Just high five myself, and it was
That's what happens
um,
with well-rounded strength programming as
Exactly.
these starting strength and Windlers. They're fine to start, but they're not where you want to end up. So
Mm.
Yeah.
you need a well-rounded strength program written by Joe Courtney. That's what you need.
I have
Clusters and
PTSD
EBOMs.
from the Windler program.
Yeah.
So those are great. I would love to retest or do some running, but it's still ungodly hot out. I just told these guys today I did my 20-second sprints on the strength track outside because that's just kind of what I was left with, and I wanted to hit that intensity, and it was very hot, but it was fine. I can run for 20 seconds in periods of time then. And my weekend workouts have been, what was it, Friday or yeah, both days on the weekend. If I don't train, I'll go for like a 3-mile walk, and it's been 124 and 126 on those days.
Oh,
where I've-
nasty.
where I've gone for walks. So it's like by the end, it's just a walk, but I'm in zone 2 and dripping.
Oh, yeah.
So it's good.
Nice.
like a
Easy
s-
zone too.
I was gonna say, yeah, basically my zone is like the first mile is working up to it, and then after that is just walking, just doing a power walk. The 2 weekends ago, I started the first like 3/4 of a mile jogging just to get my heart rate up, and then after that, it was like high. It was like right around 70%. I was just power walking the entire time.
Yeah, zone 2 is not accurate in the summer, even here
No.
in Texas. It's like,
Ugh.
do I really have to walk? Are you sure about that?
So, and I was telling Liz, like, I got back and I was like, this heat sucks for a lot of reasons, but when we get to Monterey, I think I'm gonna miss finishing workouts and just being completely drenched. I just like that. It just feels like I did something.
It goes both ways because I finish workouts like that and I'm like, that workout wasn't that hard, but I am drenched in sweat. So it's like it's a facade. Did I try hard enough?
No, that's fine. If I'm sweaty, I tried hard enough. That's why my strength days, it's like literally I just lift today and I'm in like above 70% of my max heart rate for most of it because I'm just lifting and it's 115 degrees outside.
Sure.
But it's fun. I
Well,
like it. Ashley, how goes things? You're live.
Good. I think a while back I announced that we were Scott is transitioning from active duty into the reserves. We're still waiting, which is fine.
Weird.
Yeah, I know.
Military didn't do something real fast and That's crazy.
Always happens. It's cool. He applied for Palace Chase so he could kind of get out like about 6 months earlier, but he got some good gouge, and someone was like, just be prepared. It might be like 30 days before you move, 60 days before you have to move, or essentially like transition out. But so still in Florida, he's still instructing, still good. We've done a lot of travel and come back, which has been nice, and had a good routine, and still living the zone 2 life, loving it. I could tap into zone 3, but yeah, it's nothing crazy here. Ida missed us. She went to Louisiana, unfortunately, but we've been dealing with a lot of thunderstorms lately.
Is that hurricane? I don't know who Ida is.
Yeah, Ida is a hurricane.
We don't have weather here. We have heat.
You have heat. Yeah, for sure. So yeah, nothing too crazy in the Hicks household. What about you, Jerred? Why are you looking at me like that?
All sorts of crazy going on here. Not really. We just have a lot of people working on things, and they'll be done soon. The office is not done. What? If somebody has something to say? What? No, just kidding.
I'm not saying anything.
Yeah,
No.
You know what? I do, because you said that Kyle might be the first one to see it when he comes in September, and he might not be. So I might be the first one to see it.
He should
November.
be. So what we had to do was turn the air conditioning on. I'll make this story short as I can.
Oh no.
So the air conditioning we turned on, and then the contractor wanted to wait 2 weeks before we finished the floors, just like to cool the building down for like a long period of time, get humidity out. That's his process. I don't know anything about construction, so if that sounds weird, he's just lying to me. So then they're like 2 days until that 2-week time period is over, and so they're about to do the floors, and that'll kind of complete it. So we might be done this week, but the AC got delayed almost a week because they turned it on, it worked for a day and a half, and then it stopped working. And when they were framing the house, they shot a nail through the AC line that runs refrigerant into like the cooling system, so all the refrigerant just leaked out everywhere.
Yikes.
It's like the third time I've had this happen in different homes and whatnot. Like I'm not even surprised by it. Like our last house, they shot a nail into our hot water heater, and it flooded the garage. But it took like a year for the nail to rust before that happened. But then the plumber figured it out. And then we had another house where the AC, same thing, like the line got damaged and all the Freon leaked out all over the place. And yeah, so just standard stuff.
Just another day in the moon house.
Yeah, so it's fun. I've learned a lot. I'm better for it, and I'll be in there soon. Not much else. I did. I'm eyeing Hard to Kill now because I'm pretty certain that's where I'll be headed after BCT is over, and so I've been taking little parts of it and adding it into my training. I did the tempo push-ups the other day, and I wanted to bring it up because I want to talk all about tempo all day today. And so I did the tempo push-ups. So if you haven't done it, I don't remember how many. I think it was 5 sets of max. Was it 4 sets?
No, you're right. 5 sets at 40 for the metronome. Is that what you're talking about?
40 beats per minute on the metronome. And I got progressively better at it, which I thought was odd, to where the end, but it was like, this is almost like an out of body experience. My last one, I like couldn't feel my arms or my chest anymore, but somehow I kept pushing myself up to the tempo. And I was like crazy sore the next day though, from push-ups. And I never get sore from push-ups. And so that was cool. That was a lot of fun. If you don't know how to do it, just Google, I don't know, a metronome, and Google has one like built in. Lower it down to 40, which is as low as it'll let you go for some reason on Google. And just when you hear the little annoying click, you go up. When you hear it again, you go down. And again, like the Sally push-ups, you're not resting at the bottom position. You're holding yourself in that. But yeah, that was pretty brutal. Not much else going on here other than those things. Did I mention the cold pool?
No, you haven't done the cold. plunge?
I know I've mentioned it to you guys. Yeah, so I've been doing
okay.
cold and hot. And
Every day though?
almost every day.
I mean, the hot is
So
just get out of the bath. Right?
I'm kind of obsessive. I'm trying to like not do it so much, but it's not.
so are you doing cold right after your workout and then doing sauna like at the end of your day like you normally used to, or
I'm doing cold typically in the morning right now
oh,
when I first wake up, and then hot at the end of the day.
So
A few times I've done it
scientific
like both.
huh.
scientific question that I want to know before November.
Oh no.
How often do you change the water?
The water, well, let me ask you a question. Are you concerned with how often a pool's water is changed out or a hot tub's water is changed out?
It's not
You
like
put
Jerred's
chlorine
peeing
in
in the
it?
water.
No, it's the same exact setup as this isn't just like a tub filled with
Oh,
water.
I was just thinking like you fill it up a hose and then it's like it just runs through the coolant and it was like it's cold water now.
No, it's got like it's
Oh,
got
so it's-
a filtration system. There are like chemicals I have to put in it, just like you would like a
okay.
pool and stuff. So
All right,
yeah.
carry on.
So I don't change the water that frequently to answer your question, but it's okay because that.
I just think of like people that get in ice baths like right after they're done working out and they're just like, oh, they're just dripping in sweat. And it's like, well, maybe I'll just change this bath once a week.
No, yeah, there's like a sanitize. There are like 4 different chemicals that go in there, and yeah, and I try to towel off too. If I do it after a workout, I towel off before.
Are you actually gonna do it, Joe? Don't be a
I
pansy.
don't know, man. It depends on how cold it is.
I'm pretty sure I'm the only one who's done it with them. You need to do it. I
Yeah.
thought for sure.
Well,
I
you
was
haven't
gonna
done the
get
cold. You
claustrophobic.
haven't done the cold yet.
Well,
Are you gonna do that when you come?
of course.
All right.
I
So-
always do crazy things when I go to your house.
Well, so I'm interviewing the guys who created that thing. So everyone will hear a lot more about that. But a quick story for me. I've been doing cold plunges for a while. I have one of those like silver metal troughs that you can buy at like Tractor Supply, and I'd probably only ever do it like once a week. I wouldn't do it every week, but I'd go to a gas station, buy a bunch of ice, like 100 pounds of ice, put the ice in the tub, fill it with water, get in, and but since the ice is limited, I would do it like multiple times. I'd do like stay in there for 3 or 4 minutes, get out, get back in, and keep doing it. But I never knew the temperature of that. I didn't have like a way to read the temperature. So I was just
Right.
like, this is cold, whatever, and so I lowered that down. The coldest it gets is 39. And I was thinking that's probably what my trough was, like in the 30s or 40s. No, my trough was like 60 degrees, and I was just being a baby. 39 degrees or 40 degrees is crazy cold. So my brother, he wanted to do it. And what I do after I get out in the morning is I increase the temperature to 60, just so it doesn't have to work at keeping it like super cold all day, since I'm not going to use it again for a long time.
I'll start there.
So it was at 60. My brother's like, I want to try it. And I was like, I don't think it's that cold, but whatever, you get in. 60 was tough for him. And I was like, okay. And then I left it at like 48 when he came over to work out one day. He's like, I want to do it. He's like, I want to do the cold thing again. He loves it, by the way. Like a love hate, right? Like it sucks to get in cold water, but like we've talked about a bunch of like lower limb injuries and things and pain and that. And it helps with a lot of it. And it gives him a huge surge of energy too. So anyway, he's like, I want to get in. I was like, it's 48 today. You got in at like 60, 62. He's like, no, I'm pretty sure it was like 50. And I was like, it was not. And he's like, okay, well, I'm pretty sure it was. So I'll get in. I'm like, that's fine. Go ahead and get in. He got in, and it was so funny because I know my brother really well too. It's just like, as he was like lowering himself in, you could tell he was like almost simultaneously pushing himself out. It was like, like both muscle contractions were happening at the same time. There was like
What have I done?
a lowering and a pressing out at the same time. He ultimately lowered himself into it. And I have to talk him through it. I'm just like, just breathe, focus, breathe. And he's like, you can't get in there and like have a conversation. You gotta like sit. If you're gonna go, you have to basically meditate in there. You gotta like focus.
Oh yeah.
Focus on your breath and just what you're doing. So anyway, moral of the story is I had no idea how cold water was. I've jumped in at Tahoe, Lake Tahoe, and they reported the temperature being at like 50, and that was pretty freaking cold. But yeah, 39, 40 degrees. That's a hard It's a hard cold that you all experience. It's mandatory now if you come to my house. So at least 60 seconds in the cold plunge.
Guess we got to video it.
Ugh.
Oh, we will. Yeah, especially your first time. That'd be the best video.
Like facial reactions.
Yeah, that'd be great. I should have done it with my brother.
Hmm.
All right. Well, that's all I have for all of our athletes. Thank you so much for being a part of the training, getting the tempo, getting the cluster, getting the EMOM, all of the different things that we're doing and utilizing. If you would like for someone to think about all these things for you so you don't have to, and you're not signed up for our training, go to garagegymathlete.com, sign up for a 14-day free trial, and we will get you taken care of. But that's all I got. Just our weekly reminder, if you don't kill comfort, comfort will kill you. To the Garage Gym Athlete podcast. If you want to learn more, go to garagegymathlete.com. You can learn about our training. Let us send you a copy of our book, The Garage Gym Athlete, or you can even get featured on the Garage Gym Athlete podcast. Thanks for listening.